Hi, I'm 𝙃𝙤𝙬, Executive Director of Louisville Folk School. As a description for the visually impaired, I'm a white man in my 40s with a beard, wearing a denim shirt, and a music studio filled with folk instruments. I'd like to thank Kentucky Performing Arts for their partnership. On behalf of Louisville Folk School and Kentucky Performing Arts, welcome to our conversation series, exploring the African American influence on Kentucky music. This program would not be possible without your support, and the support of the Kentucky Tourism Arts and Heritage Cabinet, South Arts, the IBMA Foundation's Arnold Schultz Fund, Kentucky Humanities, the Awesome Foundation, Brown-Forman, Tilford Dobbins and Schmidt, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the National Endowment for the Humanities. As we explore the stories of African Americans who've had a significant influence on the folk music traditions of this land that we now know as Kentucky, we'd also like to acknowledge the indigenous peoples of this land. We honor the Chickasaw, Shawnee, Cherokee, and Osage peoples who've lived here for over 10,000 years and remain here today. I'd also like to invite you to participate in this conversation. During the question and answer portion, you can use the comment feature below. Thank you, and enjoy the program.
Welcome. My name is Michael L. Jones. I'm a Louisville-based music historian and author. For our visually impaired viewers, I'm an African-American male wearing a white shirt and glasses. I'm seated in my home office with two bookcases behind me. I will be leading today's conversation, which is the second in the three-part series titled Exploring the African American Influence on Kentucky Music. This series is being presented by the Louisville Folk School and Kentucky Performing Arts. It is my honor to welcome Leyla McCalla to the screen today from her home in New Orleans. Leyla is a New York-born Haitian American musician who sings in French, Haitian Creole, and English. She also plays cello, tenor, banjo, and guitar. Leyla's debut album, Very Colored Songs, a tribute to Langston Hughes, was named 2013's Album of the Year by the London Times and Songlines for its haunting mixture of music and message. The record has just been re-released by Smithsonian's Folkways. Leyla continues to explore Haitian culture, social justice, and racism in her music, both as a solo artist and in collaborations with other musicians. She was part of the widely acclaimed collaborative project Songs of Our Native Daughters, where Rihanna Giddens, Amethyst Kia, and Allison Russell. The record is a reinvented slave narrative that confronts America's history of racism and misogyny from a powerful, modern Black female perspective. Leyla's latest project, Breaking the Thermometer to Hide the Fever, explores the legacy of Radio Haiti, Haiti's first privately owned Creole-speaking radio station. Leyla will visit Louisville on Saturday, May 8th to perform an outdoor solo concert in Christie's Garden in the Paristown Point neighborhood. This concert is a joint production by Kentucky Performing Arts, Louisville Folk School, and Girls Rock Louisville. The event is free and reservations can be made on the Kentucky Performing Arts website beginning this Thursday. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Leyla McCalla.
Hi, everybody. My name is Leyla McCalla, and for our visually impaired listeners, I am at my home in New Orleans. I'm a Black woman, and I have a batik fabric dress on. I'm sitting in front of a piano with some staged Bach books behind me, and a painting of a woman holding a bucket of water over her head.
So thanks for taking the time today. And we wanted to start out, you said you wanted to start out with playing a little bit of Haitian music that you've worked up on the banjo.
So yeah, I always, you know, I always enjoy starting these conversations with some music because I'm a musician, and that always feels right. And actually, I was thinking I'll play a song from the Native Daughters album that you were just talking about in my intro there. This one's called La Vie Difficile, The Hard Life. And is inspired by a Haitian banjo player and troubadour singer named 𝘃𝙤𝙬 𝘿𝙞𝙙. I got one of his records, and literally every song on his record started with this one riff. So I said, I'm going to write a song with that riff too. And it ended up on the Native Daughters album. So this one's called La Vie Difficile. I haven't played it in a long time, so bear with me. I'm supposed to sing in English this time. Ain't got no money, ain't got no job. I ain't done. I got no job, and I have your love, and I have your heart. Nothing in this world gonna keep us apart. I don't have much, but I wanna give you the world. Life can be hard, life can be cruel. Oh, I don't have much, but I want to give you my heart. Nothing in this world gonna keep us apart. Told you it's been a while.
It was great anyway. Haiti is not a place people think of when they usually talk about the banjo. So can you tell us a little bit about the history of the banjo in Haiti?
Yeah, well, I think that when we were talking about having this conversation, we had talked about talking about generally the Caribbean influence on American music and American string band music and the development of American string band music. And, it felt like it was too general to me, and I often feel that, maybe this is my angle here because I'm Haitian, of course, but also the more I read about Haiti, the more I see that Haiti has been kind of the entry point between Africa and the United States. And so I think we have to go kind of back to the days of when the transatlantic slave trade was actively unfolding, and all of these, a lot of different West Africans in particular brought enslaved people brought over to Haiti and creating their own Creole culture, which gets, and the banjo, of course, is a part of that. And, different traditions are communicating with each other. And that's how we have the Creole language in Haiti. Oftentimes you hear that people say, oh, this is just some version of French that no one can understand. And it's actually completely not true. I think we tend to see things from a Western European lens, but Haitian Creole is a combination of French and Spanish and English and many different African ethnic languages that will never be able to know. And so think about how the music travels, you know, there's got to be some people who play these lute, you know, goat head drum instruments from different traditions that come, and then that, you know, becomes its own thing. And then, you know, right after the Haitian Revolution is the largest influx of Saint Dominguez. That's what it was, Haiti was called at the time, to the United States. And so for me, it's like, you know, I think the reason that we don't talk about it is because the Haitian Revolution was very violent, you know, and it was unequivocally anti-enslaver, anti-colonial. And it created the first independent Black nation in the world. And that was a huge political threat to the United States, to France, to England, to Germany, to Portugal, to Spain, to all of these world powers. And so to me, that's why we don't hear about Haiti much at all, especially not with the banjo. But I read this book. It's an incredible book. It's called America's African Instrument. Do you know, you must be familiar with Laurent?
Yes, in fact, when they asked me to do this, I
you said, let's get Laurent.
A video of yours, and I saw your book, saw it on your bookshelf, and I realized that we were reading the same books.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. But you know, one of the first banjos that we find in the New World was found in Haiti.
Haiti, yes. And a lot of the planners, they have descriptions of the enslaved people carrying around these instruments.
Right, right. And it's also interesting. I think there was something in the book, and I'm going to try to recall the story specifically, but there was a specific symbol inscribed on the banjo that is found on other banjos, you know, that are found after that. And there's another, and it's a symbol of 3 leaves. And there's actually a Haitian song called 𝘬𝙭, which is 3 leaves, and it's about the 3 sort of pillars of remembrance. And it's a really beautiful poetic troubadour song. But you know, I kind of became interested in this music because I found that there was such a rich tradition of talking about what's happening in society and politically in a way that, you know, you don't really get in the history books. And then, of course, a lot of the written, you know, sort of recollections of banjo playing is written from the perspective of an outsider, a white person, you know, and the banjo eventually is appropriated by white culture, and that's when it becomes a cultural phenomenon. And so that's the general history of the banjo's Blackness being written out of it. But yeah, I feel that Haiti should be at the center of a lot of these conversations. And the Caribbean itself is so incredibly diverse. And there's, you know, different musical traditions that you can find, but banjo is very prominent in Haitian music, and Haitian, especially in old styles of Haitian folk music.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Are there any particular styles of music that were originated around the banjo in Haiti?
So that style of music is the one that I've been most interested in, you know, and most explored, really. It's called troubadour, which is the troubadour music, and it's kind of the same ideas as, you know, medieval times troubadours traveling from town to town, playing folk songs, and that are also stories, that are also lessons, that are also fables, you know, and so we have that tradition in Haiti, and it's called troubadour. So it's spelled different, but you know. Nothing is born out of a vacuum. and so yeah, I really fell in love with the music because it's a typical troubadour band is led by banjo, or the old style is led by banjo, and then the singer plays cha-cha, and then there's a tambour, which is the drum.
Mm-hmm.
So it was usually a three-piece band. And that style progressed to what is compas today, which is Haiti's, most popular music. But eventually, the banjo was replaced by the guitar, and the drum is replaced by the drum set, and then everything is electrified, and so everything is plugged in, and then you add a synthesizer, and that's the modern compas sound, which I'm sure is evolving, more than even I can speak to. But it kind of starts with that.
Yeah. How did the enslaved people use the banjo? Like what circumstances would they play it? Because I wrote a book about jug bands,
Mm-hmm.
and I talk about how voice disguisers, the horns, the jug blowing, they were used in religious rites, but when they came to the Americas, they lost their religious significance.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about that 3-leaf on the banjo.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I've read, that the musicians, they also perform kind of a religious role in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I don't know. It's interesting that you asked that, because the troubadour songs that I've been exploring, it's secular music.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious if there were times when banjo was used in a more, religious context. We know in Africa there are lute-like instruments that are the forefathers of the banjo, that are used in a more ceremonial ritual space. But from what I know about the banjo in Haiti, it seems like it's a secular instrument. But then on the other hand, you have people, who were at Congo Square in New Orleans, who saw banjo playing. And Congo Square, for people that don't know, and what made Louisiana unique and New Orleans extremely unique in, colonial times, was that there was an acceptance that slaves would be allowed to gather at this place, Congo Square, which is a very sacred site here in New Orleans. It's in Louis Armstrong Park. And so there we have people who wrote about seeing banjo playing, seeing certain types of dances, hearing certain types of rhythms that go with the dances. And so, it's hard to know what is strictly religious, what is spiritual, and what is secular, because I feel like there's a lot of intersection there. To me, it's all spiritual. But I wasn't there, obviously.
Coming from a Haitian background and living in New Orleans, are there aspects of the city that you can tell were influenced by Haiti that other people might not recognize?
Well, it's so funny because when I moved to New Orleans in 2010, and I don't know if you've heard of this book. I'm sure you've heard of Ned Sublette.
Yes.
And I read this book called The World That Made New Orleans. And one of the things that really blew my mind was how much the book talks about Haiti as a part of the inception of New Orleans as a city and as a port and as an entry to the United States from the Caribbean, Haiti and Cuba. And that made me really curious about understanding more this cultural and historical connection with Haiti. And, he talks about in the book, in the French Quarter, the ironwork was made by enslaved people. And then I remember it was maybe 2012, I went back to Haiti for the first time in a long time. And I saw that same ironwork. The same style of architecture. There's a lot that is so similar to Haiti. I remember, there's photos that you could look of 𝘃𝙤𝙞𝙙, which is a city in the north of Haiti. And you don't know if you're in New Orleans or if you're in Haiti. So there's a lot of cultural similarities. And, you know, it extends even just beyond the architecture. It's the food, it's the brass band tradition. There's like kind of like a brother-sister relationship. Definitely a kinship that is not a coincidence.
Yeah. And I know they talk about New Orleans and Havana being kind of like sister cities, but a lot of Haitians also went to Cuba,
right,
and worked there. And also New Orleans was the headquarters of the United Fruit Company, which had people working all over the Caribbean.
Right.
And so there was I've been reading about, they would have, the company would have camps of Black Southern workers that they would send to like Guatemala and things like that, or places like that.
Right.
And they opened jazz clubs. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, how does this impact the music when they get back to New Orleans? Yeah.
Right. Well, that's how cultural conversations happen, you know, it's like usually through commerce, and then people carry with them what they have. And that's, you know, their food and their music.
Yeah.
And their ideas about, and their spirituality, their idea about, you know, why we're all here. And so I feel, you know, that the United States, in particular Louisiana, but the United States in general, has been in conversation with Haiti for a long time. And you know, I'm so glad that we are finally starting to talk about it in a more open way. And you know, I beyond reading about Cuba and its music and The World That Made New Orleans, two sublet books, there's a really beautiful novel called The Masters of the Ďu that was written by a Haitian writer named Jacques Roumain. And in it, he talks about migrant workers coming back to Haiti from Cuba, and, you know, the cultural conversation that's happening there. And they speak Spanish and Creole. And I think it's Santiago de Cuba. There's a huge Haitian Creole population there. And so, yeah, it's fascinating.
So are both your parents from Haiti?
Both of my parents were born in Haiti. And emigrated to the United States in the 1960s.
So growing up, were you interested in the culture, or was...
I mean, I was exposed to the culture through my family. You know, I ate Haitian food and knew Haitian music. I heard people speaking Creole around me, but I was never fluent in Creole, you know, and that's I think that's something that the Haitian diaspora really struggles with, is like, we want to be a part of Haiti. We want to, you know, we feel connected to this place, but we're reaching back and we're trying to understand. And, you know, it's an interesting thing. I don't know if I would be doing the creative work that I'm doing had I been someone who grew up in Haiti and didn't have to reach for it as much.
So your first instrument was the cello, and you were classically trained. So what inspired you to pick up the banjo?
Well, actually, I started playing, the type of banjo I play is a tenor banjo. And it has 4 strings as opposed to a more bluegrass banjo that has 5 strings with a, you know, resonating claw hammer string. Or and so this type of banjo was used in, or is used in, a lot of New Orleans traditional jazz. So I thought, I'm going to get a banjo and I'm going to play trad jazz. I'm going to put a trad jazz band together. And again, I read that book, The World That Made New Orleans, and I got really curious about, well, you know, there's this reverence for traditional music here in Louisiana, and what does traditional music from Haiti sound like? And that same year, there was a box set that was released by the Library of Congress called the Haiti box set. and it included 10 discs exploring all these different genres of Haitian music. And the banjo was in that troubadour tradition, and so it kind of felt like, okay, this is why I'm playing the banjo, you know? There's a lot of really awesome New Orleans banjo players. I don't know if my life is necessarily about playing trad jazz, you know? I think it's more about exploring Haiti through this instrument and trying to understand the history more. And so, right instrument, wrong idea, but right instrument. And we ended up where we need to be. So it's been good.
Your new project is centered around Radio Haiti, and what really influenced you to do that?
Well, I was commissioned to create a multimedia performance piece by Duke University. They do a series of performances called From the Archives, where they pair an artist with something in their archival collection, and it's kind of a collaboration between the Rubenstein Library there and Duke Performances. And so they basically asked me, I was on tour and I played at their garden series, like I'm gonna come and do in Kentucky in a couple of weeks. And when I was there, I got to meet some really interesting scholars and who, you know, were really interested in talking to me more about Haiti. And, you know, I wanted to be in that conversation as well. And they said, you know, we do something called From the Archive, and would you be interested in creating a theatrical performance inspired by this archive? And I thought, yeah, totally. It seemed like a great idea and just felt like a really good fit. And then, you know, it's been an incredible learning experience. We actually premiered the piece. It's called Breaking the Thermometer to Hide the Fever. And we premiered the piece right the week before the big COVID-19 shutdown. And so we got in like under the line. And we, you know, I had been working on it for a few years and it was my first time, you know, doing something of that scale. The piece is incorporating sound design from the archive and recorded conversations that I've had with Michelle Montas, who is Jean Dominique's widow, the director of the station who was assassinated in the year 2000. And the, you know, trying to express the richness of the soundscape in Haiti, but also in this archive. You know, the intersection between the history of the radio station and Haitian history in general, and world history, is really fascinating. And so we were incorporating sound design, dance, video, and music. A huge puzzle. But we're excited to, we're scheduled to present the piece at the Contemporary Art Center here in this December in New Orleans, and we'll also be doing a WXPN sponsored performance at the Fringe Theater in Philadelphia. So as the world opens up, you'll be seeing us. Yeah. And you know, it's quite a large scale piece. And so one of the things that kind of occurred to me in the process was that I felt that these songs could be an album, and I'm happy to report that it is an album. And so I'm working on a release plan for the Breaking the Thermometer, the album.
Really and exciting. You had also worked on, like, with World Cafe, you did a radio documentary about the connection between New Orleans and Haiti.
Yeah, it's called Carnaval, the music of New Orleans and Haiti. And you know, and kind of more deeply explores this this cultural and historical connection, and that I feel strongly that it's such an important conversation to understand, racism in the United States and abroad, really, and all of the nuances of this cultural exchange. And so it was just such an honor that they asked me to narrate the documentary. It's a 3-hour-long radio documentary. So if you have a spare 3 hours,
I've actually listened to it. So.
Yeah. But a lot of people found it really fascinating. There's a lot of artists and thinkers and scholars that are also interviewed, and I'm so glad that it exists.
Yeah, the reason that I wanted to make you part of this webinar series is that there was a continuum of music along the river towns.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that was happening in New Orleans was happening in Louisville, was happening in Cincinnati, in St. Louis,
Right.
because, we had people going back and forth. So Louisville had string bands at the same time. New Orleans, we got brass bands at the same time. So I wonder, now that you've done all this research about Haitian music, has it changed your perspective on when you listen to American traditional music? Do you hear different elements that are familiar from Haitian music?
Well, I think yes and no. There's an element that's like, this is American music. It has a different flavor. It has a different sound. It has a different dialect of English, even. There's a lot of differences, but ultimately all of this history is connected, which means all of this music is connected, so it may not sound the same, but even just the textures, that are used, I think are similar, especially when it comes to the banjo. It's hard to make the banjo sound like anything but a banjo. And so there's that. But the inflection, it obviously has changed over time. And so I think that's why a lot of people can say, this has nothing to do with Haiti. But, if you understand the history and the history, then you can see how this music developed to become what it is, and how it might have sounded, at the turn of the 19th century. Probably pretty different.
I read an article about you, and it said that you were kind of discovered when you were busking on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems like it's just such a perfect story. I was like, did that really happen there?
That really happened. I left New York in 2010. I was living a life of bartending and waitressing and teaching cello and playing at church and playing weddings and playing, for singer-songwriter things, and playing in various bands and projects. And I kind of, started to think that maybe I'm a composer, and I had visited New Orleans a few times, and I really felt that it was a place that I always felt at home when I was here, just kind of comfortable in my own skin. I was fascinated by New Orleans. We have an extremely vibrant musical culture. There's a lot of dance. There's a lot of partying. It was fun. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go to New Orleans and figure out what I'm doing with music. And how I'm going to be able to afford it is I'm going to play Bach on Royal Street. And I did that for about a year, and it was amazing. I think I look at that as like one of the happiest years of my life. I was just me and my cello on my bicycle, and I set up, and I was basically practicing all day for money, which I loved. It was like, and I should have done this in college, But that's how I met the manager of the Carolina Chocolate Drops. He was on vacation with his family, and he walked up to me and he said, do you have a sister named Sabine McCalla who goes to Warren Wilson College? And my sister had met him at a Carolina Chocolate Drop show because she was playing fiddle at the time, and her fiddle teacher said, you got to get to know this band. They're all black string band. You need to know them. And they were going through some personnel changes, and they said, you know, we'd love to audition you. And they said, you got to go to New Orleans and find my sister. She's on the corner of Royal and Conti. And so I see this man coming up to me, and he's like taking pictures, and, you know, he's put money in my jar or whatever. So I was like, whatever, take pictures. And then he came up to me and he asked me if I know my sister. And of course I said yes. And then he told me I manage a group called the Carolina Chocolate Drops. And I had actually started playing old time music on cello around that time. And, you know, discovering that the cello is also one of the original, you know, the antecedent to the bass, to the upright bass in old time music. And that Black people even had string bands was also kind of a revelation to me and to many people around the time that the Carolina Chocolate Drops, you know, were coming up. And so I, you know, basically went from playing solo Bach on Royal Street to playing in a black string band, sold out shows all over the country. And yeah, that was a big turnaround. That was a good time.
that you start playing with the Chocolate Drops.
What'd you say?
Oh, what year was it you started playing with the Chocolate Drops?
That was 2011.
Okay.
And it happened in this really funny way, because they were like, we're recording a new album and we want you to be our guest. And I was like, I'm nobody, but sure, I'll play cello on your record. And, you know, I was in Nashville at Buddy Miller's studio, and it was just really, you know, there was something magical about it. I knew that it was just going to bring good things. And, you know, I learned a heck of a lot about the banjo, touring with that band, and all of the conversations about, you know, the whitewashing of the banjo over the years, over generations, really, and how that happened, and, you know, minstrelsy, and, you know, the banjo being appropriated by white culture and appropriated back, and, you know, this complex cultural conversation.
Don't realize the banjo's from Africa.
Yeah. I mean, the banjo is the embodiment, I feel, of, you know, of the complexity of American society and culture and values, and so it's really become a symbol of the United States, but in and of itself, it's really African.
Mm-hmm. Your first album recently got re-released, and it was a tribute to Langston Hughes, and I wondered what inspired you to do a tribute to him.
Well, kind of around that time that I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with music, and around the time that I started feeling like I had these inclinations and musical ideas that were coming up, I reconnected with Langston Hughes's poetry, and so I started setting some of his poems to songs. And I formed something when I lived in New York City called the Langston Hughes Collective, the Langston Hughes Project. And it was a collective of musician friends of mine that were kind of helping me to express these songs. And at the time, I wasn't even singing. I had other people singing the songs, and then you know, all of that kind of just, his work really, you know, it resonated with me because there's a lot of social messaging in a lot of his work. He uses really plain spoken English to talk about these very nuanced social dynamics in the United States, and racism, and to talk about Black culture, and the sweetness of it, you know, and the harshness of the world, and, you know, the existential crises of any artist. And I just related to all of those things. It just was like, yes, that works. Yes, that works. Yes, I agree with that. And those songs really spoke to me. And then, of course, I found out later that people have been composing music to Langston Hughes's poetry since he started writing poetry. And so it's not, you know, entirely unique in that way, but it really helped me to kind of connect with my voice, connect with what I wanted to do, literally connect with my voice. That's how I started singing, is because I realized that these songs need to come from my voice. There's something about that that is important to this project. And part of my voice is that my family's from Haiti, and I need to learn this Creole language that is also a part of the story of the United States. And so for me, it was just the beginning of this conversation that we're having now. And I really feel like Langston Hughes was the artist that helped me to recognize that.
And he was so international. A lot of Latin American poets, he was the first to translate their work to English. He traveled to Cuba. He traveled to Haiti.
Mm-hmm. In fact, his second autobiography is called "I Wander as I Wander," and it starts in Haiti. And he's with 𝙃𝙤𝙬 𝙃𝙖𝙞𝙀, the writer that I was telling you about, and he actually translated that because it was originally 𝙃𝙤𝙬 𝙃𝙖𝙞𝙀 𝙃𝙤𝙀, and then it became Masters of the 𝙃, thanks to Langston Hughes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like he was just there at all these really interesting turning points in history, and I wonder if he knows that. You know, I wonder if he knew that when he died.
You know, his father was born just outside of Louisville, across the river in Charleston, Indiana.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So his grandparents on that side were from Kentucky.
Yeah, he talks about that in his first autobiography, The Big C. I don't know if you've read it, but both of those books really inspired me and made me believe in being an artist too, you know, because everyone's always like, don't do it. It's a life of hardship, you know, and to hear it from an artist himself who was very actively working in so many different mediums. I mean, I think he's best known for his poetry, but he was writing prose, he was writing articles, he was writing novels, he was writing short stories, you know, it's kind of endless. His output was prolific.
I know he's everywhere, but he's still kind of underrated.
Right. Yeah. I was like, how does that happen? You know, how is that possible? And so I kind of felt like these poems need to be heard, you know, in different ways for different generations and in different times. And so it was really exciting that Smithsonian Folkways wanted to acquire it as part of their African American collection. And yeah, it's just it's a perfect fit for that.
Well, we're going to take some questions from the audience, but you said you wanted to play another song.
Yeah.
So you want to do that before we
sure.
Q&A?
So there's a song called 𝙃𝙤𝙤 𝙃𝙤𝙤, which means weighing coffee. And it's an old Haitian song. And I really, you know, the song is about it says, my mother sent me to weigh the coffee, which is, you know, a lot of coffee farmers in Haiti. And, you know, we've had this feudal system for a long time of, you know, people kind of being allowed to live on the land, but they never own the land, but they always work the land. And oftentimes, you know, the kids would be the ones to run the errands. So it says, when I went to go weigh the coffee, the police arrested me. And what will I say when I get home? And so, you know, I wanted to play the song because it feels like we're in such a moment of reckoning with the way that Black people have been policed in the United States. And, you know, I'm of the opinion that we don't need to be policed. We need resources for our communities, and you know, there's clearly an inequality issue. So anyway, this one's called 𝙃𝙤𝙬 𝙃𝙤𝙬. Maman vwem 𝙃𝙤𝙬 𝙃𝙤𝙬. Ana ivan nos botar junto mamãe. Oh, ça m'a pris la caille et m'arrivé. 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 Maman fait musique à faire. Mamam voyait me baiser café, Anaïvam na sabotage, j'entends ma mère rythme. Oh, ça m'a pris la caille et m'arrivé. 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 Maman voulait me baiser café, ouais. Anaïvam na sabotage, j'entends ma mère rythme. Maman voulait me baiser café, ouais. Anaïvam na sabotage, j'entends ma mère rythme. Oh, ça m'a pris la caille et m'arrivé. Ça m'a pris la caille et m'arrivé. Ça m'a pris la caille et m'arrivé. Oh, ça m'a pris la caille et m'arrivé. Oh, ça m'a pris la caille et m'arrivé.
Wow, that was great.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I have a few questions. The first one is, where do you hope to see the banjo evolve from here?
Oh, that's a great question. I hope to see more Black people playing the banjo, which is happening, and I hope to see less tokenization of Black banjo players, because there will be a festival that says, okay, we have one Black banjo player. That's a little bit too much, that's enough. We don't need any more. And so I hope that there's more opportunities for conversations like this with, a diversity of opinions of the person of color experience. Really, that's it. And I hope that we stop thinking of the banjo as a white instrument, because it kind of hurts us all.
Okay, the next question is, I understand that music is a huge part of the Carnival celebration that leads up to Mardi Gras. Are there many banjo songs from the Carnival tradition?
It's hard to say because, so banjo was, in traditional New Orleans jazz, banjo was the drum and the timekeeper before the drums were a part of it. And so I feel like all those New Orleans songs, whether they're about carnival or not, if there was a brass band, there was a banjo player. And so banjo is so much a part of those traditions. Is banjo played today during those, celebrations? Not necessarily. It depends on where you are, and it depends on the context, because there's, just like everyone who's exploring traditional music, there's the preservationists, and then there are the people that are pushing the tradition. So when you see people pushing the tradition, there's less banjo.
Mhm.
But certainly when your, Treme brass band is doing a second line, there's a there's a banjo player in the band. So yeah, good question.
Okay, someone wanted to know if your approach to songwriting changed once you learned the Creole language.
Yeah, I don't know if my approach to songwriting changed, and you know, I don't write in Creole as much as I write in English because, there's it's hard to think figuratively in a language that is not your first language. And so a lot of the times I'm coming up with ideas in English and then I'm having to translate them into Creole and then see if they even make sense in that language. Does it carry the same meaning? Um, and um, and so I don't know if that's changed. I think it's always kind of been a part of when I'm writing in Creole. Um, but I don't think I've ever thought of something in Creole and tried to translate it into English.
Someone else wants to know, are there other do you have other musical or artistic influences you haven't talked about?
Yes, one of my biggest musical passions is Brazilian music. I've been really inspired by the Tropicalismo movement, which was a movement in the late 60s and early 70s, kind of marrying Afro-Brazilian rhythms with American rock and roll. And so some of the artists that I really love from that tradition are Caetano Veloso, who's one of my biggest artistic influences, Gilberto Gil, Tom Zay, Chico Buarque, Jorge Ben. There's a lot of artists that I think have incredible songs and incredible imagination. And I also really love pretty much anything by Duke Ellington. I love Debussy and impressionistic classical music. I've been kind of getting into that again. And then, of course, Bach, Nina Simone, Bessie Smith. These are some of the people that come up immediately in my mind.
Isn't there a song, Capitalist Blues, that was a Brazilian song that you did?
No, it's not Brazilian. But there was a Brazilian song on Capitalist Blues.
Okay.
And actually, it's a cover of what I thought was a Caetano Veloso song, but I found out that actually it was written by a man named Luis Gonzaga. And it's called Baião da Penha. And so I translated that from Portuguese to Haitian Creole and English. And I love that song. It's really beautiful.
Someone asked where they could find, listen to, and purchase your work.
Well, sadly, my website is not the best source for that, which is so ridiculous, and we're going to fix that this year. But especially with the new album and plans for that to come out. But you can find my music everywhere. I'm on Spotify, I'm on Amazon, I'm on Apple Music, and those are the places to get it.
Yeah. I wonder, with COVID, I guess you had to slow down. How did that impact your work? Did you have more time to think about where you go from here, or did you go back and explore kind of like your catalog? And
Yeah, I mean, well, the album re-release was a big thing that happened. I've done a lot of, virtual performances and workshops for high school and college students, and a lot of panel discussions like this, because I feel a lot of organizations and institutions are really trying to have deeper conversations about stuff like this, about our history, who we are as a people, and our society is undergoing a huge racial and political reckoning. It's been an extremely tumultuous year, and it's been kind of isolating. So there's been a lot of reflecting on what has, you know, of this sort of body of work that I've developed, and then thinking about where I want to go from here. You know, we are sort of after the premiere of Breaking the Thermometer, it gave me a lot to think about with what I really want to say with that piece, and so I've been able to work more deeply on that. But I've been surprisingly busy, I have to say. You know, after that first, you know, month of slowdown, it was like kind of surprising how many things came up. And, you know, I think people are kind of have virtual performance fatigue, including myself. It's not my favorite thing to do, but when I do it, when I actually sit down and do it, I do feel more connected with people, and thankful for this medium, for these platforms that have allowed us to stay connected and continue, you know, building our audiences and reaching more people with music and ideas. So it's been a really tumultuous year, but I also feel like there's been some silver linings. And also, you know, I'm a mother of 3 young children. I have a 6.5-year-old daughter, and I have 2 almost 3-year-old twins. So I've been busy. And it's given me time to be with them, as you know, more than I would have been if I was on the road. So you can't get that back. And the fact that, you know, I've lost family members to COVID-19, I've lost friends, and so there's been incredible loss, but it has been a real grounding time in exploring what's really important.
Mm-hmm. Will the show in Louisville, will it be your first live performance in a while, or?
It'll be my first time traveling that far for a live performance. And to an audience. You know, I went to Lafayette once to do a pre-recorded thing with a band, and there was no audience, you know, so this will be really special, and I'm curious how it will feel. But I really love Louisville. I love the architecture. Every time I'm there, people are extremely warm, and yeah, I'm excited to come back. I'm fully vaxxed, so you know, there feels like there's some protection there.
Yeah, I think we're all excited too. I think that's all the questions. We're gonna wrap it up. Is there something that I didn't ask you about that you'd like to have a parting word?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I wanted to say is that I did get to make an album out of all of the songs from the Breaking the Thermometer piece, and I'm working on a release plan, so look out for that. I'm on, you know, I have all the social medias that anyone could ever want, and so you can find me on there, and I'm excited to share more about release plans soon.
All right. Thank you, Leyla, and thank you all for joining us today. And as I said, many thanks to Leyla for spending time with Louisville this afternoon, and we look forward to the opportunity to see you live soon.
Yeah.
A reminder, Leyla will visit Louisville on Saturday, May 8th to perform outdoor solo concert at Christie's Garden in Paristown Point neighborhood as part of a joint event produced by the Kentucky Performing Arts, the Louisville Folk School, and Girls Rock Louisville. The event is free, and reservations can be made at the Kentucky Performing Arts website beginning this Thursday. So again, thanks for joining us today, and hopefully you can join us next Sunday, where we'll be talking about Arnold Schultz, the godfather of bluegrass, with myself, musician and historian Don Flemings, and panelists Keith Lawrence and Dr. Richard Brown. So thanks again to everyone.
See y'all next time.